So I asked my parents, can I get a dog? And they said, no, you're not getting a dog. So what did I do? I tore down big chunks of my Lego city. I built myself my own life-size Lego dog. Now it was very rectangular, kind of boxy in places, so I called it a boxer. But it was my dog. And that was the first moment when I realized, wow, this toy does not have to be limited to just what's on the front of the box. It just doesn't have to be cars and trucks and buildings. It can be anything I can think of. If I wanted to be a rock star that day, I'll build myself a guitar. If I want to be an astronaut, I'll build myself my very own rocket. And that was one of those first aha moments when I really thought, there are no limits to this toy. So as I grew up in high school, I still had my Lego. I would play with it from time to time, and actually more time than I probably should admit. But even in college, I had Lego. Now in college, I kept my Lego under my dorm room bed. It was, yeah, I don't think my roommates even knew I had Lego bricks, but for me, it was someplace I could go. You know, if I was having a bad day, I could pull out a few bricks, snap a few together, and it was almost therapy for me. Now, I had taken some art classes, and I got out of college, and what does a young budding artist do? Well, they go to law school. I just didn't have faith in my art, so I ended up actually going to law school to find a career that direction. Art for me was still a passion, but it wasn't what I had thought was going to be my full-time job. So in law school, I still had my Lego. I would still spend time building from time, and there were points where I should have been studying, and I'd actually build an entire replica of my law school dorm and my law school neighborhood, all out of Lego bricks. Now I got out of law school, and it was, I had some loans, but so I figured, well, the best thing to do is probably just get a job as a lawyer. So I started practicing law in New York City. I was doing very exciting stuff. I was doing corporate law, securities, M&A, 80 hours a week, practicing law, you know, negotiating contracts, just what I'd always wanted to do. But I would find that I needed a creative outlet still. And so I would come home at night and I would do something creative. You know, some people at the end of the day, they go to the gym. Not me. I would draw. I would paint. I would sculpt. Now, I wasn't always sculpting out of Lego. Sometimes I was sculpting out of more traditional media, like clay or wire. I even did a series of sculptures out of candy. Now, sculpting with candy is similar to sculpting with Lego because, well, it's small little pieces. It's additive sculpture where you're taking these tiny things, putting them together to create these larger forms. And one day I thought to myself, what about this toy from my childhood? Could I create large-scale pieces using just Lego bricks? So I challenged myself. I said, I challenged myself to do some sculptures using just Lego. Now, the first thing I ever tried to do, well, I needed a medium that was accessible. I needed a subject matter that was accessible, something I could find in my apartment every day. So I chose to do an image of myself. It worked out. Oops. So I'm going to pepper this talk with some examples of my work over the years. This is not the first piece I ever did. The first piece I ever did does not look exactly like me. But it was an adventure in seeing what I could do with this toy. And eventually friends and family encouraged me to try other things. Can you build other things? And I started doing a lot of representational work. I would build things that I found in my apartment, but try and build them out of Lego, and maybe try and build them at an entirely different scale. So a lot of times kids ask me, how can I be like you? I say one of the first steps is try and build things you see. Build what you see around you. So I would build an apple, like you saw in the video, or I'd build a pencil. But instead of building a pencil 8 inches long, I would build it 8 feet tall. Eventually, I started building more and more projects that I thought would bear. I thought it would be best to put them on a website. And so I put a website together, brickartist.com, and I started getting actual requests from folks all over the world. And they were asking for me to build different things, all sorts of commissions. Sometimes it was replicas of their kids, sometimes it was replicas of their dog, sometimes it was building their passion out of Lego. If they love skiing, they asked me to build a skier out of Lego. If they loved, well, slot machines, I would build a slot machine out of Lego. I actually, one of my very first commissions was the CEO of Bazillionaires Inc., which is a slot machine manufacturer, and he wanted an antique slot machine made out of Lego bricks. And I was like, great. So I started finding there was this career almost, this market where people wanted their passion, but wanted me to express it out of Lego, and I started taking on those type of commissions. It was an interesting process because I was finding more and more about my art as I went, and more about what I could build out of Lego, and then really I found there were no limits. So as I kept building, let's see if I can scroll. I started exploring different themes, exploring different challenges for myself, trying to put some emotion into the art. Because I decided I wanted to try and take this thing, this Lego brick, into a place it's never been before. Instead of keeping it at the toy store, let's see if we can take it into the Fine Art Museum. Let's see if we can take it into the Fine Art Gallery. And so I started trying to express my own journeys through my Lego art. Now I'll talk a little bit about my process. When I come up with an idea, I sketch it down. That's the first thing. It's not necessarily just building out of the blue. I usually draw out a lot of my... I carry a sketchbook with me wherever I'm at, so that if I have an idea, I can sketch it down. I've even been known to sketch ideas on napkins in restaurants from time to time, because I'll get that idea and I want to get it down immediately. Now, as I'm working, I'll try and sketch it out in a lot of detail. In fact, I want to envision the sculpture in my mind completed before I even put down that first brick. So that squares. Well, brick paper has rectangles on it, the shape of Lego bricks. So I can use those, I can use the brick paper to sketch out my idea, and then that becomes almost a blueprint for my project. Now, as I'm working, I like to glue my sculptures together. I put a little bit of glue on each individual brick as I build the thing together. And that's to make sure that when the sculpture is done, it stays together in one piece. Now, we all know that if you snap a few Lego bricks together, they're going to stay together just fine. But I found when you're shipping things around the world, it's pretty important to make sure they arrive in one piece. Galleries can get kind of grumpy when they open up a big crate and it's just a bunch of loose bricks inside. So I always include a note that says some assembly required. My process has evolved over the years. I used to actually build two sculptures. I would build one unglued and then copy build it, gluing it as I go. But now I have enough faith in my work that I will glue as I go. And if, on the off chance there is a mistake, I'm actually pretty good with a hammer and chisel. So these are some other examples of works I've done over the years. I found it's pretty interesting because a lot of folks have, when I started out, a lot of folks started kind of possibly dismissing the work. Well, it's built out of toys. Maybe they just expected cars and trucks. And it's been a blessing because now museums and, well, galleries, fine art galleries in New York who kind of slammed the door in my face years ago are now knocking on my door saying, will you come show with us, which has been very fun. Now, I talked a little bit about emotion and putting emotion into the pieces, and this is a piece called My Boy that was inspired by a sad story that was told to me. And one thing that happened with this piece was probably one of the best compliments I'd ever had for one of my sculptures, because when I debuted this piece, a woman started crying, and I realized she was pulling her own emotion out from this sculpture, and she was no longer seeing it as just a toy, but she was really seeing it as art, and that was quite a nice compliment. This next piece, let's see, this is called The Rebirth of New Orleans, and was actually put together after the devastation by Hurricane Katrina. I was commissioned by the New Orleans Public Library to do a piece that celebrated the rebirth of the city. And you see the buildings are brightly colored and kind of crooked in places. The windows don't always line up. That's because when I was doing the piece, I received hundreds of drawings from children all over the world, all over the country. and they were asked to draw what was important for the rebuilding of a city. So they would draw things like a hospital, a school, a park, but they would draw things like the hospital in pink. And so I took those drawings and I used them for literal interpretations, and that's why you see the buildings are crooked, the windows don't line up, because I really tried to capture the spirit of those drawings. This is a new piece that came out about a year ago for Valentine's Day. And then there's this piece. This is a piece called Yellow, which has become a bit iconic. I've seen this sculpture in many different places. It has been on the covers of music albums. It's been on the covers of books. It was actually used on the back of a major fashion label's jacket. It's a logo for a DJ in Jersey. Some of this was done with my permission, some without. Now you recall I was a lawyer, so it all worked out in the end. But, now one of the great things about my job is that I get commissions from all around the world. And what that means is people contact me and say, hey, can you build this, can you build that? And I think it's one of the best parts of the job is because I don't know where the next project might come from or the next exciting idea. And this was a piece that was commissioned by the National Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia. They'd asked for a sculpture that would really teach history to kids. So let's do it through a medium they're familiar with. And this is the flag raising at Iwo Jima. And it was quite an honor, but also one of the more challenging pieces I've ever done. Not only was it challenging just in the structural engineering, but also the fact that this is such an iconic image. Everyone knows this image, and so I put a lot of pressure on myself. This took 6 weeks to complete, and those Marines were started and stopped a few times before they were finished. This is another example of a commission that I just finished this past year. This is a replica of one of the famous lions in front of the New York Public Library. The library has 2 marble lions that sit in front of the library, and I was asked to do replicas of them to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the library. Again, iconic images, especially in New York, and so a lot of pressure to make sure they looked right. And what happened, what worked out really well was kids were able to identify and learn a little bit about history again because it was through this medium that we're all familiar with, this toy. And that's what's been so exciting. When I do these exhibitions, seeing so many people come to the museum who might not normally even go to museums, but because it's made out of something we've all played with at one time or another, they can relate to this art on a whole different level. Now, other commissions that I get can be a little more fun. This was Conan was debuting his new show, and I got contacted by his people to do a replica of Conan, which was a fun adventure. I'd asked him because I wanted to make it look just right. So I said, Conan, you're going to have to come by the studio and just stand there for 3 weeks. But he wasn't able to work that in the schedule. So I worked off of a lot of photographs to make this one happen. And he was so happy that he asked for another one. But this time, he wanted to look like a superhero. So we did this. And this is his superhero that, if you watch his show, he uses clips of him as a superhero from time to time. To give you an idea on scale on this piece, it's larger than life size. So that took a bit of work to put together. Now, of course, you put together something for someone, and then, of course, someone else wants one. I did get to be a guest on both Conan and Stephen Colbert's show, and I don't think I'd ever been more nervous for an interview than for Stephen's show, because before the show even began, I was sitting in my dressing room, and Stephen came in and said, "Hi, I'm Stephen Colbert. I just wanted to introduce myself and just let you know that I'm a big fan of your work. But just so you know, before you go out there, my character, Stephen Colbert, well, he thinks you're kind of weird. He thinks your art's kind of stupid. He thinks art in general is pointless. So have a good interview." And he walked out. But it was a lot of fun. So this is one of the larger pieces I've ever done. This is a piece that measures 20 feet long, and it took an entire summer to build. As you can see, a TRex skeleton. That is me there holding the skull there. So it's a massive piece. But I wanted to do something for kids, because when I first started doing an exhibition of my work, I was surprised, I was shocked actually at how many children were coming to the museums. And I wanted to give back to those kids and give them something that they enjoy. So I brainstormed for a little bit, what do kids love? They really do like dinosaurs. So I came up with this piece, which was a challenge. So as I mentioned, and as you may have seen upstairs, I have 3 exhibitions that are now touring, 2 in the US and 1 in Australia. And it's been really fun for me to kind of teach kids about art in a whole new way. Because as I've said, they can relate to this art because it's made out of this toy. But we're finding that kids can really connect to it. Kids might go to a museum and they may see a marble statue and they can appreciate it. But if they go home that night, it is very doubtful they'll have a slab of marble at home they can start chipping away at. But what we found, and I receive emails all the time, is that kids go home from seeing the exhibition and they get inspired and they build themselves and they try and create their own works of art. In fact, one of the common emails I get is a thank you. It says something to the effect of, "Dear Nathan, we took the kids to go see your art. Just wanted to say thanks. We got home from the exhibit, the kids went to their room, they dug out their Lego bricks, and we haven't heard from them in 3 days." Thank you. So the exhibit has been a lot of fun to tour around. These works have been touring now for a few years, and it's been fun to always see people's reaction to them. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my latest projects. This is a sculpture that I call Hugman, and I've done hundreds of Hugmen. It is my form of street art. I wanted to come up with something I could leave around New York City and leave a smile, give a smile to people. Put a smile on their face, I should say. And so I came up with this. This guy, I call him Hugman because he can hug almost anything. He can hug a signpost. He can hug a tree. He can hug a park bench leg. And so I've made many of these and just left them around the city. People stop, they take a look, they may take pictures, and because it's New York City, they last a good 1-2 hours before they disappear. So a lot of people do ask me, did you make the right choice? Did you make the right transition? Because at a certain point, I had to leave what I was doing. I had to leave from being a lawyer and make that decision to become a full-time artist. And it was tough because I had a nice paying job. It was very secure. I had health insurance. I had a nice lifestyle. And I chose to leave that all behind to follow my passion. And it was tough at the time because there was a point where I was really worried, was I going to be able to pay rent next month if I do this? But I had a lot of good support from friends and family. And I found that those people who didn't support me that much, who kind of made fun of me, were probably not that good of friends to begin with. It was very tough to make that transition. But I learned that you really sometimes have to cut some of those negative people out of your life. You have to cut out those people that say, "No, I don't think you're doing this, you're making a mistake." And it was a hard transition, but it was a good transition. In the end, I do remember my parents and family and friends very supportive. My colleagues were actually a little jealous, and my boss was very confused. But I always say this: after years, I left the law firm several years ago now. The worst day as an artist is still better than the best day as a lawyer. So I'm going to open this up to questions. If anyone has any questions about the work, I'm happy to take the questions. Go ahead. Oh, there's a microphone. We actually have a microphone coming around. Is it going on?
Okay. Well, since you're an artist and stuff with Legos, I probably have about 1 billion Legos and stuff. And I thought of a good one that you could make.
Please.
One of those lights up there.
Oh, yeah?
See that?
Yeah.
You could, make a monkey on top of it. And
Yeah, that's a great idea. I will put that on the list of ideas. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry?
How long do you take building Legos?
How long does it take? That's a great question. The length of time it takes to build a sculpture really depends a lot on the size and complexity. So sometimes I can build something in a few days, sometimes it takes a few weeks, sometimes even a few months. A life-size human form, something about this big, is going to take about 2 to 3 weeks to complete.
What has been the reaction of the LEGO company, and have they been supportive?
Great question. The LEGO company and I have a very good business relationship. The first contact I ever received from the LEGO company was a cease and desist letter. But I was a lawyer at the time, so it wasn't. I wasn't too worried. It was actually a good thing. It opened a line of communication, and we've actually gone on to have very good communication back and forth. I actually go to their headquarters in Denmark every few years to FaceTime with them. Now, I still buy all my LEGO bricks, which is surprising to some folks. They think that LEGO might just ship them all over to me for free, but I actually still purchase them, just like everyone else. The difference being I buy them by the hundreds of thousands. My art studio in New York City has 1.5 million bricks at any given time. I try to keep the inventory full at all times. So what that means is that I don't want to worry if I'm building on a project, am I going to run out of pieces. So I'm constantly ordering more bricks to make sure I have tons and tons of bricks there. And it's a very surreal experience to be on or look down Lexington Avenue and a semi-truck will pull out and dump like 5 pallets of LEGO bricks on the sidewalk. That is my life.
Which creation is your favorite?
What creation is my favorite? That is a good question. It's hard because they're all my babies. I put my heart and soul into each and every one of them. So it's really tough to pick a favorite. If asked which creation is my favorite, I'd probably have to say the next one.
Car?
A car?
Like a monster truck car?
Monster truck car. I haven't done a monster truck car yet. I've done some vehicles in the past. I did a life-size speedboat, actually, which was a challenge because I was building it live at a boat show, and I only had 10 days to pull it off, which seemed like a lot of time on day one, but it ended up 18 hours a day for the last 8 days of that project.
How many sculptures have you made?
How many sculptures have I made? That's a great question. It's hard to say how many. I think over the years I've done hundreds and hundreds. It might be close to thousands at this point. I have a website, brickartist.com, that has my virtual online gallery. You can go and see them all there, but I haven't done a count yet.
Do you work with LEGO Club?
Do I do work with the LEGO Club? Well, the LEGO Club is part of the great part of the fan community that supports LEGO, and from time to time I do work with them, of course.
Will you? Well, I got an idea for you. You can make a LEGO zombie bleeding from its head, and then you can make a LEGO shotgun and hold it in your hands.
Again, I put that on the list. Great idea. A few years ago, actually, I did put the list online and let people vote on what I would do next. Maybe I'll have to do that again and see what comes in. That's right, Ed. Good point. So when I did this a few years ago, I put a comment section online on my website where you could write in what you thought I should build next. And once we had compiled a list of ideas, you were allowed to vote on which one would be the top sculpture, and whatever one I would build. And it just so happens that the one that won was actually a replica of Mount Rushmore that's upstairs.
Do you think you could build like a big race car?
Well, the biggest race car I've ever done was about 3 feet long. So it was only about that big. But maybe one day, we'll see.
Can you make a volcano with fish coming out of it?
Now, the great thing about Lego is there's no limits. If you have an idea, it can be done. And these are all great ideas, but I encourage you guys to try some of them. I think it'd be really fun to see you to build a volcano.
Two questions. One, do you have a specific type of brick you use, like only 2x4s or only 2x2, or?
Good question.
Or I mean, any kind of pieces, like even little heads that come in the, the people sets. And the other question would be, do you build them all in one piece, or for instance with the TRex, did you build the head separate and then attach it after you've done it, or was it one complete piece?
Great questions, both of them. Regarding the pieces I use, what I've found is I'm happiest with the rectangular pieces. So all the different shapes of bricks, the 2x2, the 2x3, the 2x4, but the bricks that I have is big. There's a little bit of nostalgia there. There's also some other things. I really like the clean lines of the rectangles. I like looking at the sculpture, and when you're up close to it, you see all those right angles, those sharp corners. Put you back away from it, and see it from a different perspective. And now those corners get kind of blurred to curves, and that's kind of the magic of the sculptures. As for building the sculptures in proportion, there is a reason that sometimes I have to do that, and that's because there's a door in my studio, and whatever I'm building has to get through that door. So if it's bigger than the door, yes, it does break down, and then I'll reassemble it on site. Now, something like the T-Rex actually was 14 different sections. It travels in 14 different sections so that it makes it easier to just move it rather than trying to haul that giant piece at one time.
Why don't you just build a Hugman and put it on the lights?
That's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, well, I love building Hugmen and just leaving them around. Maybe there's one around here. I don't know. Oh, it's about building Hugmen. And would I put one on the lights?
I was just wondering if you, to get away from it, do you lawyer in your pastime? Or how do you get time away?
I don't lawyer that much. I try not to. I actually have let my legal license expire. So if I wanted to go back and practice law, I'd have to take the bar exam again. And the reason for that was I really wanted to turn myself kick in the pants and say, you know what, there's no safety net here. You're going to make this leap, make this transition. You're going to go for it. Put your all into it. So I try not to lawyer. Now, of course, from time to time, there's negotiations with possible venues and clients and whatnot. And I ended up doing a little lawyering on the side. But that's actually the thing. I know I have a lot of friends who are artists, and they're jealous because when they're negotiating with the client, they have to go to a third party, their lawyer, ask them to look at it, and I do have this advantage where I can go just straight through the negotiations and get through the negotiations hopefully faster with the client.
How do you manage so many pieces? Like, I know you get thousands and thousands. Like, how do you manage them, and how do you order them? Like, do you do more than one at one time, or just like focus on one?
Fortunately, I have a great staff that helps me. So, although I'm the only artist working in my team, I have some great people. I have an assistant that really helps me out a lot. I also have a woman who's great about handling all the logistics of getting things all around the world. But there's also just keeping the inventory. At this point, I know what I need, and it's just kind of every month an order goes out just to make sure all the buckets are full of bricks.
Do you ever incorporate robotics or moving parts into your sculptures?
Good question. You may know that LEGO has a lot of robotic sets. They have these sets where you can actually do robotics, make certain parts of the LEGO move around and whatnot. And I haven't used it too much, but I did get one request a few years ago. It was from Carrier, which is an air conditioner manufacturer. And they asked if I could build a life-size replica of one of their big commercial air conditioning units. And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. And then they said, well, we want you to build it on site in Las Vegas at a convention. Okay, yeah, I think I could pull that off. Oh, one more thing. We want it to work. So that's when I first started working with robotics pieces. And so to get this air conditioner to work, I installed, I built fans and had them spinning at different speeds and create a breeze out of the air conditioning unit. So that was the first time I'd ever used a robot.
Where's the funniest place you've ever stuck a hug?
The funniest place I've ever stuck a hug. Well, I think, well, you saw the one on the bike. That was interesting, of course, because I was sitting at a restaurant and I put it on the delivery guy's bike outside, and I watched it. He's in there getting all the food ready, and then he walks outside, he's got two bags, and he stops. And he's looking at the bike, and he's like, what the? He goes back inside. And then he comes out, and there's like four guys. They're all looking around. And then I just step up and explain, all right, I can take this off. You can make your delivery. But I've also gone to like a Starbucks. So I put one out on the sidewalk and then sat in the window at Starbucks and just watched what's happened. And I've actually witnessed someone just, they walked by, they didn't even break stride, and they just swooped it up and took it as they were walking. Yeah. New York.
Could you make a life-size rocket launcher?
Life-size rocket launcher. Maybe. I don't think there's any reason why not. No limits. We'll see. I'll put it on the list.
Can girls play with Legos too?
Of course girls can play with Lego. In fact, I often go to schools where I'll be asked to judge contests. And I'll judge, the school will have a contest where everyone in each grade builds sculptures. And it was interesting. Last time I did this, it's happened a couple of times. I've gone to school and I judged grades 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And all the winners were girls.
Can you build giant earrings?
Can I build giant earrings? I think I could. But can you build giant earrings? That's the real question. I hope you guys get inspired. Go home, break out your Lego bricks, and see what you can build.
Can you build giant buildings? Like one of those?
Like one of those.
Yes, like
life-size buildings. I actually
skyscrapers?
this building that you're standing in right now, there's a replica of it upstairs. So if you haven't been up there, you can check it out. I've done a couple of the buildings that are around here, like the Choctaw building, this building here as well. I built all out of Lego. But I've also done some skyscrapers, like you asked. I was commissioned, I got a call from the Trump organization. And Donald Trump was opening a new hotel in Dubai. And he wanted a replica of this new skyscraper built out of Lego. Now, we wanted it 10 feet tall, and he needed it in literally 10 days. And to build something 10 feet tall in 10 days, that's a pretty big challenge. But in the end, it worked out. Unfortunately, I was able to pull it off and build in the sculpture. And the great thing about working with Donald Trump is when you're done and everything's done, and you send that invoice, you can put an extra zero at the end of the invoice.
I got one more.
Okay.
Can you do it's like a scary movie, a scary one.
Scary one?
Can you build
a face of a vampire with blood all over it.
You know, it's a good idea. Maybe one day, I try not to make my art too scary. You never know.
With the sculptures that you do, how much of it is the shell, and how much is it always filled up on the inside, or is it most of the time just the outside shell?
That's a good question. The sculptures are almost always hollow. I will put some structural beams inside from time to time that are built out of Lego, but I'll put that in so it contains a shape. For the most part, they're hollow, and the reason being they don't need to be solid. They stay together, and they'd be so heavy if they were solid.
Do you ever feel like Willy Wonka when you're building with Legos?
I've been called Willy Wonka from time to time. When I'm building with Lego, it is fun for me. I think I'm happiest when I'm just in the studio working. I've been told I go into a bit of a trance, and for me, it's probably where I'm happiest. All right, we probably have time for one more question.
If you do yellow again,
Yeah.
then make it a little bit different. Have it so his face is open and stuff coming out, and put it on someone's doorway.
Yeah. All right. So you want yellow again, but like a vampire or a zombie holding a shotgun. Yeah. We'll see what's next. I encourage you to go to brigarts.com. I'm always posting photos of my newest work, and you can always email me photos of what you've been building, and I'll check it out. All right. Thank you all very much for coming.